You're not ready for cancer to decide how long you live. You're right. You're not. No one is. You've read the numbers. Maybe you even searched for them in the middle of the night when you couldn't sleep, trying to make sense of the odds and statistics, what they say and what they don't.
To this day, I hear the words, you have cancer and it's not good.
Those numbers don't know you, your fight, your faith, your family, or your future. And if you've discovered the same thing, that the odds are not in your favor, this episode's going to show you another perspective. This is Kicking Cancer's Ass, and I'm Joelle Kaufman, your host. In this episode, you'll see what it really looks like to beat the odds, to take a stage 4 diagnosis and live 9 years and still keep going, by finding doctors who push boundaries, joining trials that keep new options coming, and staying alive long enough for the next breakthrough. Because your story doesn't start or end with statistics. You get to decide what happens next. Because cancer might still be in the room, but it doesn't get to run the show. Let's just start at what prompted you as a young man to get screened for prostate cancer at 42?
You know, I actually started feeling symptoms. They made a recommendation not to do it till you were 50, not to screen for prostate cancer till you were 50. And I remember being happy about that, right? I but I was at work one day and I noticed some weird feelings. I noticed some pressure. Not necessarily in my groin area, but basically between my rectum and my scrotum. And it was this weird feeling. I hadn't had a physical in quite a few years, so I went ahead and scheduled a physical. And then I remember, physical was over. He said, "Hey, do you have any more questions?" And I told him I started experiencing this pressure. It was really weird, kind of concerning. And he said, "Well, you're not at the age where we would normally check your prostate, but would you want me to check your prostate?" And my immediate answer is no, I don't want you to. But you know, it was just fumbling for words, and he finally said, "Look, it's not going to be fun for me either." And we kind of chuckled a little bit, and then he performed the exam, and he said, it feels doesn't feel correct, and so he put me on antibiotics. He thought maybe I had prostatitis or something, and I did some blood work, and then I left, and I remember getting my blood work that evening, and I saw my PSA. It was in the 60s, and they have the normal ranges, 0 through 6 or 1 through 6, and um, I started to kind of stress a little bit then. You know, I've always been really healthy, and every single time I've gone to a physician's office, I knew I was going to walk out of there fine. It's not something I ever worried about. And as I was looking at this blood work, it was the first time in my life I started to stress about something like this.
It's really interesting that they released the PSA to you
Yeah.
without a doctor calling. Is that
Yeah.
the right thing to do? Because
Right.
you can go online and say, what does that mean? Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole thing about getting results and portals and looking at numbers and things like that's a big area of conversation, and lots of taboos with that. But he scheduled an appointment for me or referred me to a urologist. So I was taking the antibiotics for a couple of weeks, and in 2 weeks I was to follow up with a urologist.
So you mentioned a story about driving in San Francisco with your wife and 3 kids, and there's a phone call.
Yeah, if you fast forward a bit, so I did go see the urologist, and I'm sitting in his office, and I had to do blood work right before. And to your point, I'm sitting in his office waiting for him to walk in, and I see my results on my phone, and my PSA was up to 93. And about 10, 15 seconds later, he walked in and he looked at me and did a double take, which has kind of been familiar along from my journey. He said, "What are you doing in my office? You know, you're too young to be in my office." And I just remember saying, "Just tell me why my PSA is this high, and I'll leave." And you know, of course, another exam and looked at my PSA, and he scheduled a biopsy for me. And it's one of the least fun experiences of this journey is the biopsy. But yeah, I was my mother has a house in San Francisco and had a house in San Francisco. My brother and I, it's where we grew up, and we were flying back to work on the house. It was time to leave, and we were driving back to the airport. I was driving, and thank God this is, I think pre-Apple CarPlay and those kinds of things, right? So my phone rang, and I answered it, and it was the urologist, and I could still hear his voice to this day. I hear the words, "You have cancer, and it's not good." He wanted me to follow up with him when I got back. We shortly made our way to the airport, and I just shook my head to my wife, said, "It's not good." And when we had a moment just to ourselves, I told her what he said, and how they talk in movies about the world kind of stopping, but everything around you is moving full speed.
So, Miguel, can I call an audible here? I'm
Sure.
one. I'm wondering if you, Miguel, it's been 9 years. I mean, you're an amazing story. What would Miguel today want to say if he was sitting next to Miguel on that airplane?
I think the Miguel today speaks a different language than Miguel on the airplane, and it, that's a fantastic question, but I don't know how to answer it because I don't know that Miguel on the airplane would have understood what Miguel today was saying. And also, I think you have to go through all of the feelings, all the thoughts and feelings. You have to let them in. You have to let them visit, and then you know you have to take action.
Which you can't do literally sitting on an airplane. You can't
No,
research, you ruminate.
yeah.
So are you comfortable sharing some of the thoughts that were going through your head and that's all he told you is it's cancer and it's not good? Like he didn't give you any more information?
You know, I'm sure he did, but but who listens after that?
Right. You go deaf when someone
Yeah,
says it's cancer. I tell people, if you know you're going to get biopsy results, use a recording device, a transcript maker, another human being, all of the above, because you are not going to hear anything after the results.
you're absolutely right. I don't know that I would have. I'm sure partly as a man, and I'm going to stereotype now. If you were to give me that advice, hey, you're getting biopsy results, you should try and record it or have somebody in the room. And I would say, why? I'm going to be fine, right? Um, but certainly everything I did after that, someone was with me, someone was taking notes.
What happened next? You go in for the appointment, you're going to learn some more stuff.
Yeah, boy, did I. I mean, it was a crash course in prostate cancer. And my diagnosis was pretty unique in that they found your typical prostate cancer cells, testosterone dependent cells, but they also found small cell cancer in my in the biopsies. So that was, I was told um, that a certain percentage of men, it's like 2% of men that get diagnosed with prostate cancer get diagnosed with small cell prostate cancer. And then 2% of those people get diagnosed with both So you know, it was it was a lot to digest, but also I think it had some benefits. But I was told when I followed up with him, you're going to meet with an oncologist, you're going to meet with a radiation oncologist, and I think that was probably 2 days later. I had to do more imaging and things like that. But also, I was told that my case was going in front of the tumor board. I was at the University of Colorado Cancer Center, and it's a research hospital. And the benefit of that is there's a tumor board, and all these different oncologists listen to the case for complicated cases, and they give their opinions. And on the one hand, it's terrible. I was 2% of 2%. But on the other hand, I think I probably got more attention because of that, and my age too, right?
You are very fit. I mean, you're still fit. 9 years ago, I'm sure you were very fit. You're a good candidate for the best they have to offer because you don't have comorbidities.
Right. Maybe I fibbed a little bit. I told I don't give people advice. The advice I do give people, that whenever they ask me for it, God forbid they ask me for it, is, we're all going to go through something, whether it's mental health challenges, physical health challenges. Life is going to constantly throw you curveballs. The more fit you are going into it, the better you're going to get through it, the better you're going to deal with it.
That's right. The more your body is able to handle whatever's going to come at it. And I found, because I also exercise lifting heavy weights where you have to recover, that
Yeah.
your body gets better and faster at recovery, which
Yeah.
turns out to be a transferable skill. So, Miguel, when did you and your wife decide to tell your kids what was going on, and how did you, because they were pretty young when
Yeah.
this started?
Yeah. They were pretty young. Um, so I guess, that they must have been 12, 10, and 8, I think, when I was diagnosed, and we decided we had to tell them. We knew we were going to tell them, but I guess we didn't know what to tell them. So we waited until we had as much information as possible. And in my case, there's not a ton of information. Can't answer very many questions because it was, again, 2% of 2%, right? So it was tough, but I certainly remember sitting them down in the living room and talking to them about it. And it was, I mean, being honest with them, as honest as we could be. That's hard. That's really hard.
Yeah, I call it the continental divide of your childhood because I was both the child, I was on the
Yeah.
receiving side when I was 13 and 15, and then I was the parent on the delivery side when my kids were older than yours, but 15, 18, and 20.
Yeah.
And so I think it's hard, but kids are, they're resilient and they have questions. I felt we had to tell them.
I felt like we had to tell them. But my wife went even further, and she was adamant that we include them. So, we went, they came with me to the oncologist's office. She talked to them about what what my treatments were going to be. We took them to one of my radiation appointments, and the staff brought them back there and showed them the machine, showed them the table I was going to lay on. Thank God they didn't take them back to the locker room where it was a bunch of old men in their tidy whities waiting for for radiation. But yeah, they came to a chemo appointment. Yeah, so we included them, and I'm a firm believer that without clear communication, the other party often fills in the blanks with things that are in their heads, and they're mostly wrong, and maybe even traumatic. So we tried to be as communicative as possible.
I think that showed also a lot of respect for your children.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's important. And information knowledge is the antidote to anxiety. You told me a story about a pivot in your treatment journey, and it was the radiation oncologist who was working with people facing ovarian cancer.
The tumor board met. I met with my oncologist, radiation oncologist, and they set out a treatment path for me. And it was radiation, and then a procedure to implant radioactive pellets, and then chemo. And I did the radiation. I did some follow-up testing, and thank God, my prostate responded to the hormone deprivation and the radiation, and it it shrunk so much that I could no longer do the pellet procedure. So I went back into radiation some more, and then um, I did my chemo. But they also asked me to, if I wanted to get a second opinion. I mean, there was no reason to get a second opinion on the disease. It was pretty clear I had the disease, the diagnosis, but there were questions. Do you chemo first and then radiation? Do you do radiation first and then chemo? So I did go out to UCSF and I met with some people there, and they agreed with the timeline. So we had done started with the radiation, and that worked for a little while, and then I got the call again that my numbers were kind of coming up and cancer was back, and I went on another medication that didn't really work. um, but we tried it for a while, and the whole time you're buying time, which is so important in your journey. The longer you can kick the can down the road, the the more treatments that may become available, the more studies that are out there. This other treatment failed, but around that time, there was an article put out about people taking medication that was created for ovarian cancer, PARP inhibitors. And they had found that they tried to see if they would work for men with hormone dependent cancer. And they found that it did. People with a BRCA2 mutation, like myself. My radiation oncologist was insistent that they send my tissues from my biopsy for genetic testing. And that was not really common at the time. And what they had found was that my tumor had developed, I do not have this, but my tumor developed a BRCA2 mutation. And so, he was reading this study and thought it'd be a good idea to try it for me. That medication wasn't around or that study wasn't, results hadn't been published when I was first diagnosed, but, been able to kick the can down the road long enough where those results came out and they decided to try it on me. And I mean, I've been on it for over 6 years now.
Yeah, the PARP inhibitors are just a tremendous breakthrough. Them and the immunotherapy are really rewriting the
Yeah.
story about
Yeah.
what it means to have cancer or stage 4 cancer. And I've never heard of a tumor developing mutation that the host doesn't have.
Right. My insurance denied the PARP inhibitor. Um, my oncologist, wrote a letter trying to overturn the denial, and it worked, right? Because at that time it hadn't been approved for prostate cancer,
Is it
and
approved now? Is it
it is
approved
approved.
now?
It is approved now. I think in the last couple of years it had been approved, but on social media, there's a couple of groups I belong to, and I was finding other people that their physicians wanted to put them on it and their insurance denied it. And they were reaching into their retirement savings to purchase the medications. It's the last time I saw it was $13,000 a month for this medication.
It's a horrible thing if you there's a drug that can be appropriate and save your life or give you, I mean, I believe there's very low side effects with this particular with PARP inhibitors, right?
Uh, Fatigue, which everything has fatigue. The cancer has fatigue, the hormone therapy has fatigue, radiation, chemo, and the PARP inhibitor. And early on, there was a lot of stomach pain. It really upset my stomach to the point, I mean, I couldn't drink coffee anymore. And to some people, that's worse than the disease, right? Like it's hard. You live in Colorado in a cold morning, you can't have coffee.
You and I talked about how cancer is a plot device, and the first thing people do in movies or television or what have you is, if it's cancer, it's terrible and you're going to die, and you got pretty much one of the worst diagnoses for prostate cancer one can get. And you told me you're not grateful for getting it, but you just said you speak a different language now. Like, how has your cancer journey shaped who you are?
I think, I remember back to the early time and, just try to make sense of everything. And, the number one, why, how did I get this? Why did I get this? And I never found that out. Um, and I'll never know. And then, you become okay with not knowing. Around time of diagnosis, I was working on a project with a peer and a friend of mine at the University of Texas, Alan Harden, and he called me and he's like, "Hey, where's that document? I've been waiting for it." And I was still getting used to saying I have prostate cancer. Um, and I got choked up and I told him I can't get this to you. I'm just going through something. And he said something really profound to me. He told me, he listened to me and he told me, he said, if you ever need someone to talk to, or just need to yell at someone, or just cry, he said, call me. And he told me he loved me. And I remember hanging up the phone and thinking, nobody has ever said that to me before. No grown man other than my father has ever told me they love me. And you start thinking like, wow, I wouldn't have known this feeling if it hadn't been for prostate cancer.
Mhm.
Um, and then there was another time too. I had to walk up this hill, park in a dirt lot, and walk up this hill, and this wet snow's coming down, and I just remember walking up like this and being like, "This is so terrible. Like this is just bad." And I got kind of halfway up the hill, and I stopped, and I don't know why, and I just kind of looked around, and you know I realized it was a mindset. I'm not sure how I realized that, but then I just look and trees are covered with snow. It actually is kind of pretty, and so I can be in awe of this view, or I could just be miserable. And I'm not sure how I put all that together, but that's kind of guided by my life. Is like we get to choose how we feel about things, how we react to things, and that made a huge difference to me.
And how did that change you as a father, as a parent, and as a mentor?
For my career, you kind of get in this routine where you listen to people's problems. It's hard to be empathetic because you got 10 people that are waiting for you to look at them and work with them, and you know I really learned how to hear people and hear what they said, and because people were doing that for me. Same thing with the kids, right? Like you just learn to be present. I think that was the biggest fear, was missing out on things in their lives. And so I didn't want to miss out on anybody's life. I wanted to be present. And then when you're present, all of a sudden you start to have these conversations, and the kids family love the conversations, and you just, it brings about more. Um, so it just, I don't know, you really look for the good parts in life. And I love being a father. I love lessons, we talking through things, explaining things. It just, yeah. And then you also do a self-evaluation to realize maybe I haven't been good in this area. I haven't been good in that area. It's an opportunity to be different.
Do you think you being a person managing stage 4 prostate cancer changed how your kids behaved in their teenage years as they transitioned into young adulthood? How do you think it impacted them?
My youngest, through no fault of his, he probably struggled the most. He was the youngest, and he struggled the most with feelings, and trying to understand this and stuff. And you know, I, I will say that when my hair grew back, when I sort of got color back, I think most people felt like, oh, he's he's better. He's all better now. And it took the kids a little while to realize, well, like, why are you still going to see the doctor? Why are you still going in for tests and things? And um, because I think people want to fill in that blank with, oh, he's better, and we're you know we're done, right? And so um, I think with me showing some vulnerability, it allowed for real conversations about things. I try to explain my life is so much better. Like, there's so many great things in my life since the diagnosis. My oldest son, I think he called me pretty much every day. My daughter calls me all the time. My youngest calls me all the time. Now that they're out of the house, we're constantly communicating. Who could say that?
Cancer patients.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
What was your take on it with your marriage?
It things things change, right? Like, instead of, if you do date night, instead of date night, it's, you know chemo session, right? So, and you just start to realize that, you know things mean different things now. So, intimacy takes on a whole new meaning. It's sitting there talking. It's spending time together, on the couch, no TV, just talking, right? Like, and it's again, it's great. It makes you realize all the areas that you look past.
I think that's brilliant.
Yeah. Thank you.
Uh,
I should write it down.
all right, so let's do the lightning round. First thing that comes to your mind, um, 5 questions.
Okay.
The biggest surprise about living with advanced prostate cancer for 10 years has been.
The biggest surprise so far is just all the positives that came from it, right? But I fully expect to live much longer and have more surprises.
I love that. I thought you were going to say that I'm still here.
Yeah.
And, you look healthy, you look vibrant. And that's because it sounds like you are healthy and vibrant.
Yeah, it's a mental health, it's a physical health, and the two go together hand in hand.
I'm going to come back to the lightning round, but besides this fabulous person at the University of Texas, you've mentioned mental health a couple times. And for you as a man, not having that emotional support prior to cancer, did you find a support group? Did you use a psycho-oncologist? Like, how did you deal with the mental health aspect of your diagnosis and your treatment?
There was a young lady who had nannied for us here and there, and she ended up coming to see you. And I hire students, and I hired her to work for some projects with me. And this is right around the time I got diagnosed, and I remember sitting talking to her and telling her, "Yeah, okay, I got it figured out, and I have to go to radiation, and I'll just go." And Andrea wants to come with me, but for me, it's easier if I come to work, I leave, I go to radiation, I come back to work, and it's kind of, that way. It's more like running errands, get my hair cut, dropping off dry cleaning. And she kind of looked at me and she said, "I think you're scared." And she called me out basically, and said, I want to do that because do it that way because I was scared about being vulnerable, allowing people to help and participate. And by not having her not come with me, I didn't have to talk about stuff. And she was right. And, you learn how to be vulnerable. We were always the kind of people that did things for other people, food trains in the neighborhood, somebody got sick, something happened, somebody's parents died. We were always the ones doing that kind of stuff. And now that the roles were reversed, we didn't know how to let people help us. And some smarter people than I were told me that people trying to help you and people wanting to help you is their way of participating. And if you may be fine, you may not need help, but if you don't let them participate, then shame on you, right? And so we learn to let people help us. I was going to chemo. um, there were people that wanted to take me and would drive me down, and that way Andrea wouldn't have to take a full day off of work, and they'd take me down. I do my blood work, and they'd sit with me with the doctor. I have a kind of a story that was a reinforcer. I was going through chemo, and probably at the end of it, uh, and the microwave in the kitchen had broken, and so replaced it and had the old microwave kind of over by the dining room. And it was time to put it outside. They were coming by to collect some stuff, and so I went to grab it, and Andrew was like, "Well, let me help." And I was like, I don't need help. I got it." And she's like, "Please let me help." I was like, "You can help me by opening the door and just let me do this." And as I'm walking, I just realized, the microwave is above the oven, starting to slip in my hands. And I'll be danged if it didn't fall, and the corner of the microwave landed on my big toe,
Ouch.
took my shoe off, and not to be graphic, but there was blood squirting everywhere. And next thing you know, I'm in the urgent care emergency room. And it was kind of maybe a way of someone telling me, when people want to help, let them help, right?
It's amazing when you let people help, they feel good and you feel good.
Yeah, I told you the cancer started coming back. um, I there was a new scan that had come out. My hospital hadn't had it yet, but in Chicago, we found one in Chicago, and so insurance was going to cover it. I was going to pay cash. Well, there's these two guys in my neighborhood. One guy, bought my airline ticket. He travels a lot, and so he just used his miles to get my airline ticket. And the other guy covered my hotel room, and the three of us went to Chicago for this scan. And it's just, man, it's that again. If I didn't have this, gone through this, I wouldn't have known that kind of support and care.
It's amazing. All right, back to our lightning round. What's the
Yeah.
one thing you wish more men knew about prostate cancer screening, especially younger men?
Yeah, I think every man, this is my personal opinion, right? I wish every man would just get a PSA. It's easy. You get blood work, right? You just get a PSA test before you turn 40 or at 40. And then also, don't be afraid of the exams. Don't be afraid of the evaluations, and um, because it's much worse if you catch it later.
That's
And
true.
the little thing you were afraid of beforehand turns into a lot of bigger things later, and then oftentimes irreversible things that can't be fixed or corrected. I think as men, if our car starts to make a noise or something doesn't feel right, we're quick to get it in the shop. But if our body starts to make a noise or something doesn't feel right, we're like, just walk it off. It'll get better.
Yeah, that craziness. All right,
Yeah.
so you've been on this hormone therapy for over a decade. What's your advice for men facing long-term hormone treatment to stay strong, active? What do you recommend?
I think number one, you have to learn to love yourself. Whatever wherever you are, whatever your shape your body's in, just love who you are, and be happy with who you are, and then get better, right? So, it was really hard to stay active during radiation, stay active during chemo, but I knew though that was my best chance to be where I wanted to be when it was over. Got to, I think I finished chemo in December, and then February we ran a half marathon down in Austin, and then I ran a couple marathons after that. I do think that there has to be some level of um, cardiovascular efficiency, shape, um, as well as strength training, and just get in and do it. And I think a lot of people are intimidated by the gym, but I look at all the people in the tight shirts and the muscles everywhere that just are filming themselves when they're working out, and I just laugh because no, they don't know what toughness is. They don't know what strength is. Strength is just getting out of bed and deciding you're going to go to the gym when you have cancer.
I love that. And I think that's right. And what your body is doing is so powerful and so strong. All right. So, what's your advice for someone looking to kick cancer's ass?
Do it, right? Like we all have. I do say, I told you before, it's important to let the things in and to feel those things and then to move forward. Um, but I think one of my favorite sayings is, so what, now what? You have cancer. So what? What are you going to do? So get out there and do it.
So, my target goal, I went through treatment January through April. My surgery was in May. So, we had gone skiing and then I got diagnosed. And so now my ski season. And I said to my husband, I want to ski. I actually sat down on the run and then I sat down at the bottom of the run.
Yeah.
And we sat at a picnic table and I said, I feel so bad that I couldn't do it. And he looks at me and says, you tried and you did get down and you just went through all of this stuff and you're on a mountain and just look around. And that was, the reset I needed.
Well, and your biggest problem probably was that you were trying to turn, right? Like, and that's hard, right? That's hard work in skiing.
I did not bomb the run because,
Yeah.
I did figure I just survived cancer. I'd like to live.
But maybe next time I see someone flying down the mountain, instead of calling them a jerk, I'll just say they probably have cancer and are coming back from something, and
I love that.
bless them.
Okay. Exactly. So I now I know that you now co-chair a cancer support group. I think it's a men's cancer support group. And you're looking at, what comes next in your journey, but
Yeah.
what's the most important message you want to share with a newly diagnosed patient who's scared that they're running out of time?
What I learned in this is helping people feels good. And so if there's a way to get involved, doesn't have to be a support group. It doesn't have to be um, a mentor, but just talking to people. I'm sure you go through this too, right? Anytime someone gets diagnosed, it seems like you get a call, someone reaches out, can you talk to this person? Can you talk to that person? Then you realize that there's a lot of people going through this, and you start to feel that you can contribute to other people's wellness. And I think that it's important to give back if you can.
I agree. And I find those calls so rewarding for me, like you do as well. And what people tell me is our conversations give them confidence. They can do it, give them hope. Life isn't over as I knew it. Life's just made a shift, and it can be, and for me and for you, it can be better
Yeah,
after the shift.
people like me, you kind of feel like you're on an island. Um, and one of the things I told myself early on is when I had to digest the diagnosis, well, thank God it's me and not my kids, right? And that helped me for a while. But you get used to feeling like you're on an island, and when you talk to other people, you realize you're not on an island, and I think they realize they're not on an island, and there's many people. There's too many people that are going through this, but there's
And there's lots of us living having gone through it. I mean,
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
it is the club no one wants to join, but the members are fantastic.
Oh, my first the urologist that diagnosed me told me you're going to go meet a radiation oncologist, an oncologist, and they're going to give you treatment options. But you have to ask them, okay, great, you guys are going to extend my life, but what's the quality of life going to be? And he told me, he said, if it was me, I would just live out what I have left, right? And uh, a lot of people ask me when I tell people that, if I'm mad at him for saying that, and I'm not. I think uh, he was treating me as a person, not as he wasn't treating the disease. He was treating me as a person. Um, but when I got to see the oncologist and radiation oncologist, um, they were the ones that said, we don't know how long you have left, and we're going to do everything we can to give you a happy, healthier life. And that gave me permission to fight hard too. They're going to fight for me. I'm going to fight hard too.
Well, I think both conversations gave you permission. The first doctor gave you permission that you have a choice.
Yeah.
You can make a choice.
Yeah.
And there is so much strength in choosing. And you also have the choice, if at some point the quality of life is not good, to stop choosing that and choose something else. In your case, I'm going to choose to get to the next thing because
Yeah.
they keep developing the next thing.
Yeah. I do believe that uh, if you want, you can also curl up in bed and pass away. And that's your choice, right? Through treatment or not. But why? But think of all the things that you miss out on. People saying really earth-shattering things to you. People helping you to make sense of life. Your children uh, showing you things you didn't think were possible. And then you learn just how, like, what the beauty of living is.
Absolutely. I love that. Miguel, you've been so generous sharing your story, your wisdom, your positive energy. I love it. And I hope that your story, I know you share it with people and help people through support. I hope through Kicking Cancer's Ass, we can share your story with even more people and help them see all the possibilities and how rich life really is. And if you're watching this episode or listening to it and it helped you, it gave you hope, it made you laugh, it gave you inspiration, share it with somebody. Maybe it'll lighten up their day too. And until next week, I'm Joelle. Keep kicking cancer's ass.